Hello, and welcome to Gardener's World. Now, in this workshop, I make the hurdles that I use all the time in the garden. I'm going to be sowing some grass today. So what the hurdles will do in this case is act as a barrier. And then later on in the year, as plants grow, they act as supports. And I make them usually in the winter, simply from spare chestnut fencing posts, sometimes ash, that I can split and shape. And I use it because it doesn't rot very easily when it's wet. So it means that the bits that stick in the ground will last for years and years. I've got some hurdles that I made 10, 15 years ago. The first thing to do is make all the elements before assembling any of it, which is a bit like planting a border. And knowing that I've made them and that I've spent these hours in this shed quietly, usually with Ned, gives the kind of satisfaction that nothing you can buy ever reaches. It's one of those things that I regard as part of my gardening life, and I love it for that variety. Coming up on today's programme, Adam is in the Lake District, enjoying dramatic splashes of colour.
The atmosphere is incredible. It just sort of tastes of spring. In all honesty, I wish I could just bottle it, put it in the car and take it home.
We visit Bedminster in Bristol, where a community of urban gardeners are sharing their gardens and gardening knowledge with one another.
Being part of the project has just been a really good community experience. You know, we've got to know a lot more people, we've seen a lot more gardens. Every garden you go in, you get ideas. Everybody's got different ways of doing things.
Rekha visits a garden near her own in Derbyshire to help inform her which crops are likely to thrive best in her own garden this coming year.
Asparagus?
Yes.
We're in summer.
Yes.
It's a spring crop.
Yeah, no.
No, no.
Not here. So it always comes out at this time of year up here. So it is a summer salad kind of vegetable for us.
So I need to learn to be patient with my crops.
Yes.
And we share one man's lifelong delight in delphiniums.
I've been growing them for over 50 years and I still don't know why I like growing them. It's just a way of life. It's now been recognised as a national collection just recently. And so my job now is to keep these oldies going.
This is the long walk, and you may have seen me last week where I aerated it. It got very compacted and critically very shady, and if grass is to be successful, it does need light and it needs good drainage. Well, drainage is poor, and when it all grows up in summer, it's in shade for almost all the day. So I aerated it last week, brushed it over. I brushed some sand in, but I want to add a little bit more, and then I'm going to reseed it, or at least top dress it, with grass seed that is specially adapted to survive shade. So first thing to do is spread a bit more sand. There you go. And this is sharp sand, which comes from a builder's merchant. There's nothing fancy or horticultural about it. It's not a bad idea if you've got very heavy soil and you're starting a lawn from scratch or you're turfing, to add a little bit of sand like this. It will improve drainage. Having thrown the sand, next thing to do is to brush it in. This is a besom. They're incredibly good for this type of thing. The beauty of it is you don't push, you just flick. It's very light to use and very effective. And this is getting rid of the worst of the stones and the lumps, and it's pushing the sand into the holes that the aerator made. This is now ready for sowing. Now, whatever type of seed it is, throw it like that, not too thick. It is really important that you choose the right seed for what you want. There's so much information online, you can put that in and a mix will come up. Final thing to do is to rake it in. Two other things that I need to do. The first is to keep it moist until you need to mow it. I would expect this to germinate, in 4 or 5 days, certainly no more than a week, and be ready for mowing in about 3 weeks. And the second thing to do, having done that, is keep feet off it. Dog feet, children's feet, and that's what the hurdles are for. So, Ned, this is against you. Right, that'll keep you out. This will never be a show lawn. The conditions aren't right for that. But hopefully by doing this, I will create the green, calm space that I want, and also a lawn that's good enough for the grandchildren to run around and play. Now, last spring, Adam went to visit a garden which I'm sure has lots of green, calm spaces, but it's also full of zinging colour.
What's not to love? A day out in the Lake District, surrounded by spring colour. Also, look at that. It's Lake Windermere. And rain or shine, I think this is going to be a lovely day. Whole Herd is a 10-acre garden managed entirely by 120 volunteers from the Lakeland Horticultural Society. And it's their work and dedication that keeps this garden looking great all year round. Right now, the garden is a riot of colour. It actually stops you in your tracks. The rhododendrons, azaleas are a feast for the eyes. The atmosphere is incredible. It just sort of tastes of spring. In all honesty, I wish I could just bottle it, put it in the car and take it home. This is a garden that really sits well in its landscape. I also like the fact that the shrubs are not being used just for their colours. Its shapes and forms. You only have to look here. That's a Pyrrhus. And that bright flame that you can see is the new foliage, but I think that connects to the Acer. And then there's a little white flower on it, which again connects your eye back to this rhododendron. All that sort of stuff is going on all the way around this garden. It's cracking. But every now and then you come across a specimen that you're not expecting to see. And this is definitely one of those. It comes from Japan, but also you can see the bees really busy coming in and out. If I go quiet, just listen. Just absolutely incredible. So this is called Enchanthus campanulatus. Stunning. This is Deutzia rosa campanulata. And I think it's an underused shrub. You can buy them different varieties from metre up to 2.5. Sun, semi-shady conditions, most soils. But look at the habit. Beautiful sort of arching habit. And it will take a decent pruning. So even if you've got a small garden, superb shrub for you. The volunteers here are custodians of a mighty 6 national collections, like hydrangeas and ferns, that have their moment later in the year. But right now, perhaps the most difficult to grow are the beautiful, majestic Himalayan poppies. I'm smiling because up there I can see the colour blue, and that's just what I'm looking for. Volunteer Pat Murphy has been nurturing their 80 varieties here for the last 15 years. Hello, Pat.
Hello.
The famous meconopsis. They're sort of classically a plant that people worry about growing, aren't they?
They do, yes.
Yeah, because there's over sort of, what, 80 odd species?
There's actually 90 been identified now.
Wow.
All from the Himalayas, many high up in the Himalayas,
Yeah.
which we can't actually grow in this country. But we can grow the big blues because they come from lower down in the Himalayas.
I live in a dry part of the country, on limestone. I struggle to grow these. So let's go right back to the beginning. Soil conditions. What have you got here?
We have got a really good loam here. It's slightly acid, but they will grow neutral to acid soil.
Yeah.
It needs to be moist, it needs to be well drained,
Yeah.
and it needs to have a lot of nutrients in it. So we feed the plants, and every year I put lots of leaf mould down. This one used to be called Lingham caliform,
Yeah.
and the meconopsis group have now renamed it Michael Wickenden.
Right.
There are lots and lots of colours in this, especially in younger
Yeah.
flowers there.
They're seriously sort of magical. Is
They
that
are absolutely magical,
Yeah.
yes.
Wow. I mean, the obvious colour when we think meconopsis is the blue, but got right from the white through to deep purple.
We have,
Yeah.
yes.
That looks good.
This is Marit. It's a really good, strong meconopsis.
I know the flowers, you know, the star in a sense, but the foliage and the stem and the hairs and the little colourings, when you start looking closely,
Yes.
the detail's incredible, isn't
Yes.
it? I feel like I'm in a meconopsis sweet shop. And actually, what's that little dark one up there?
That is Edrum. The flowers start off plum
Yeah,
coloured
yeah.
and then gradually change to a lighter colour as seen in the flower behind. There's such variety that they're always interesting.
Do you know, it's got me to the point I might move.
OK, well, you should come to the Lake District of Scotland.
I will. The Trust, who took over the rundown grounds in the 1970s, have worked to create a garden with a quintessential Lakeland feel.
I'm chair of what we call the Garden Committee.
And it's Alison Sanford's job to manage the volunteers who make the magic happen. It's a little bit mind-blowing that this whole place is run by volunteers. How does that work?
Well, it works by most of the people working in teams.
Yeah.
And then we have committees that will oversee and facilitate the teams. Each of the beds has a bed holder, the team leader.
Yep. Yeah.
And that person is responsible for looking after that bed. And the volunteers come in and help that particular person. The team who are working on a bed can decide what they want, any changes they want to make to the bed, as long as they're in keeping with the theme.
Over 100 people. That's huge resources of other skills.
Yes, so it's not just the gardening skills that we have. We have a wide range. One of our team is able to do stone walling for us.
Brilliant.
Other teams are electricians.
Yeah.
And then we have a team who set up all the water irrigation.
It feels a happy place to be.
It is a nice place to be. I just love being here, and it doesn't always have to be busy. And it's really nice sometimes just to find a quiet bit, my bit, up on the fell side and go and have a quiet time there before going on with some more work.
Nicola and Sarah work on the alpine bed. You both look very busy, eh?
Yes, we are.
So the rock garden is your domain. Did you know much about alpines before you started up?
No.
here? No, but that's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah. We're both getting lots of learning for free and enjoying being up on the fell.
Yeah, I do love that sense of, you know, coming together, and it seems that not only the visitors enjoy this garden, but locally it's really
Oh,
It's
well,
important
just
to
look
people.
where it is.
I
Look
know,
at
I know.
what you can see. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
The last time I came to this garden, it was about 5 years ago. But I didn't come at this time of year, so to go and explore the garden, enjoy that colour, but also that freshness that spring brings, it's invigorating and it feeds the soul.
Now, obviously, meconopsis are just staggeringly beautiful, but I love the way they need such specific conditions in order to grow. I've got snake's head fritillaries growing in the spring garden. They just love the fact that we have a corner of the garden that is flooded, so therefore they go to soaking in winter, and that's the key to growing them. Here in the copse, the wood anemones, this coppice woodland is ideal for them, whereas they wouldn't grow if they were anywhere else. And I've got some dog-tooth violets, the erythronium. Again, there is that particular magic of the combination of a beautiful flower that doesn't last for terribly long and needs exactly a certain set of conditions in order to thrive. As the bulbs are bursting out all around us, the tulips just beginning, the daffodils still going, the muscari, there's a tendency to think of bulbs as something that happens in spring. But there are good summer bulbs too. And one of my favourites, and one of the best of them all, are lilies. And now is the time to get them into pots or into the ground. You can do it any time between late February and the end of April. I grow lilies in pots for two reasons. One, because our soil is on the heavy side, and lilies like a light soil. And also, they have wonderful scent. And of course, if you grow them in pots, you can move them around so that they are near where you want them when they're flowering and their fragrance is at their best, and then you can move them away when they're not doing anything. Now, these have been in this pot for about 4 or 5 years, and they need revamping. If you keep them in a pot, they're going to use up the nutrients in the compost. So it's a good idea, if you've got them in pots, to repot them every couple of years, maybe every 3 years certainly, and check the bulbs and replace ones that are looking a little bit less than perfect. So I'm going to tip these out. Come on, out you come. This is Lilium regali, the regal lily, and I think the best lily you can grow. It has this seductive fragrance. The first thing I want to see is, are they firm? Is there any rot? And the answer is no, not really on that one. That's a nice big one. As a rule, the bigger a bulb, as long as it's healthy, the better the flowers will be. See, these are small bulbs that will have been made from the parents. But what I want is the best possible display. So I don't want any of these small ones. These are good, nice and big and strong. And I put them into a smaller pot, add some of my base compost in there, and then the magic ingredient, I think, for lilies is leaf mould. It's not such a good feed, but it's wonderful for soil structure, and lilies love the looseness of it. And we'll put 3 bulbs in there, and I'm going to put 2 of these and add a new one. And I've got a new one here. So I sort of refresh the whole thing. And I love the way that bulbs come in sawdust, and that's so they don't go mouldy. So we'll pop that in, and like all bulbs, you want to put them in, I mean, ideally twice their own depth. I'm going to pop that in there. I'm going to have another biggie. That's really good. Now I'll cover these over with a little bit of this, a little bit of this. Now when you're planting out into the garden, lilies like cool, shaded roots and sun for the flowers. This can now be put to one side. As soon as the shoots appear, they need light. And the important thing is they don't need to be on display. And this can grow on for the next month or two. And then they'll go in a terracotta pot that had tulips in them. And I've got a pot here, which is actually a bit on the big side. If this was full of tulips, as soon as the tulips have finished flowering, we could take them out, put them into a plastic pot. This then goes into here with compost underneath it and round the edge and maybe some grit over the top so you can't see the plastic pot at all. And when they finish flowering, you can lift it out and you can use the pot for something else. Right, I'm going to move this out the way. Come on, then. This is the wildlife garden, and it's one of those things that's quite tricky to get dead right for you, the gardener, but surprisingly easy to get right for wildlife. The key thing is cover. Now, cover can range from trees. We've got hawthorn, we've got a field maple, we've got an oak. The hawthorn, for example, makes a brilliant small garden tree. It's got fabulous blossom, which is great for insects. And then, of course, in autumn, the berries the birds love too. So on every level, it works fantastically well. In a woodland planting like this, ground cover is really important. Now, ground cover, it can be tricky in a border because they tend to be thugs. But in this situation, you sometimes need a thug to combat other thugs. So, for example, we let the ivy roam, you've got the arum lily, even lesson celandine, which in other parts of the garden is actually quite an irritating weed, is welcome in here. So you've got cover. The second thing that's absolutely essential to encourage wildlife is to have as many flowering plants for as long as possible. So at this time of year, when there isn't much flowering, we've got the caltha looking really good. I've got pulmonaria at my feet. We've got hellebores. Just make sure there's a good diversity and the insects will come. And that's why I've got some plants here. Last winter, we dug this up because it'd been getting very weedy. Now, weeds are not necessarily a bad thing. It's a good idea to have a stand of nettles, for example, because they're great food for the caterpillars. But they've become dominant, so we've dug it through, and now I want to start replanting. I've got a tray of geranium fern, which I dug up from the jewel garden. And they're ideal for this type of gardening because they're tough, they make great ground cover, they flower fairly early, they'll grow in shade. You can cut them back really hard and it won't harm them and they'll come back, or you can let them grow and sprawl wherever you want. This has got very shallow roots, so really I just need to pull a scrape in the soil and pack around it. It's one of the easiest plants you could possibly have. Right, I'll work this along here. Of course, Longmeadow is set in the middle of the countryside, but most people garden in towns and cities. And in Bedminster, in Bristol, there are people doing wonderful things for wildlife in their gardens and sharing it with others, as every year they have their Secret Gardens Trail.
Bedminster's a lovely community, but the neighbourhood is defined by lots of close-knit, terraced, red brick houses. So there isn't a lot of green space, there aren't many street trees, and the gardens are really small. We set up the Bedminster Secret Gardens Open Trail to try and make the neighbourhood greener and more pleasant for everybody. So the Secret Gardens Trail started in 2009 when a few of us got together and decided to open our gardens for the public. There were just 9 of us that opened that first year. We've now got nearly 30 gardens. It's amazing when you go through a gate sometimes and have no idea what's on the other side of it and can really be blown away by what people have done in a small garden.
I don't think you're ever going to get away from the sounds of the city, but there's something that happens in your brain that cuts that away when you're surrounded by the greenery and the flowers and so on. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Mo.
We've lived here for, I think, about 38 years. A long time.
Yeah.
The main aim of the garden is to encourage as much wildlife as possible.
We get a fantastic range of birds coming into the garden.
In a small garden, I would say one of the most important things if you're trying to encourage birds is create cover. And one of the first things that you can do in these terraced back gardens is put in climbers along all your boundaries. One of the very first things we did was plant that ivy, and if you look at the size of the trunk, you can realise why maybe people choose not to plant ivy. But clearly it's a habitat for insects, it's cover for birds.
It's cover, but it's also food source. They need feeding, a variety of food so that you're attracting a different sort of birds. And water, even in the winter, you need to make sure they're able to access water. So we installed a really nice pond last year. We have had sparrowhawks in the garden because the sparrow population is massive, so they do love occasionally to come in, and he will perch on this branch here and sort of...
Eat a sparrow.
Being part of the project has just been a really good community experience. You know, we've got to know a lot more people, we've seen a lot more gardens. Every garden you go in, you get ideas. Everybody's got different ways of doing things.
When people come into your garden, it makes us realise how incredibly lucky we are. I'm always thinking I'd really like a much bigger garden. And then you meet people who are stuck in flats and haven't even got a little balcony. And they're really enjoying coming around and seeing these outside spaces. And I just realise how ridiculously lucky we are.
Yeah, that's true.
I think there's a bit of nosiness in each of us, and that's one of the great things about secret gardens, is you get to peek behind the gates and see what's going on the other side of the wall. And it's just extraordinary what people do, even when they're constrained with the tiniest of spaces.
This is a very small urban garden, surrounded by houses, by a child's nursery. It's quite nice to get some privacy. I'm Mark Pyack, and this is my Jurassic-themed miniature tropical garden. Jurassic-themed is about prehistoric plants. I'm a big fan of dinosaurs. I work in Bristol Museum, and a lot of the plants that I've got in this garden are living fossils. So they used to be dinosaur food, horsetails and things like that. But it's tropical, which means I've got some giant plants in here, big banana plants, tree ferns, gunnera and things like that. The rule is really just break all the rules. Choose the biggest plants and just let them go mental. They grow really fast. The trick that I found is to give them big pots. I bought some massive pots. They didn't actually fit through the door when they arrived, so I had to turn them on their side. But they're out here now and the plants are loving it. This is my tree fern. I've had it about 11 years now, and in that time it's developed at least a foot of trunk, and you can see it's grown to fill the entire width of the garden. Here it's a microclimate, so I don't have to wrap it up. It's just fine all year round. My banana plants, I do have to wrap them up because the stems can rot down a bit, but no, he's fine. I've been really fascinated about Japanese culture and the way that they prune and develop bonsai. And obviously in such a small garden, it's quite convenient to be able to grow mini trees. A really small urban garden has its limitations in terms of light. The sun will go over the houses and get blocked up. You might have a lot of damp and dark spaces. What's really important is to choose plants that will thrive in those spaces. Having said that, when you get used to your garden, there'll be a sunny spot somewhere, and I managed to group all the cacti in the little sunspot, and the cacti are doing well. I've always thought that I've run out of space, but it's amazing once you start looking at the walls, there's always more space to fill. I think one day I might like to move house to get a bigger garden, but it terrifies me, the logistics of that now. This year, as part of Blooming Bedminster, 285 people came in on a single day, and that was quite a challenge.
My name's Matthew Simmons, and my garden is a small city garden that's really about the size of a yard, but it's quite sunken because our house is on a hill, so you actually step down into our garden. People often think about colour in a garden as, you know, the pinks and the yellows and the reds, and actually the most wide and diverse colour is green, and it's such a relaxing colour, and you can get so many different shapes and textures of plants. When people come into the garden, they're quite surprised that they've come off the street behind an unassuming brick wall and they walk into this absolute kind of open-air plant terrarium, really. And they talk about certain things particularly. They always mention the pleached hornbeam trees that we have because they're a really distinctive feature and they form a fantastic green screen from the houses opposite. They also talk about the bamboo. So this is the black bamboo, and often people see bamboo and they think, oh goodness, you can't grow that in a small garden, it'll take over. So it's really important to get a clump forming, not one that will spread. Although it has lots of lovely green leaves, to make sure you see these beautiful stems, then I just strip off all of the side shoots from below. Somebody once came into the garden and said, oh, you've poodled your bamboo. And I wondered what they meant, but they meant just making sure you expose the stems. So I always say to people, poodle your bamboo. My husband will often say to me, you can't get any more plants into the garden, and I always think I know exactly where I can get another plant in the garden. So there's always space for one more plant. One of the best things about Secret Gardens is that it's a real sense of community, and it's wonderful that people can see real gardens that they can relate to, that are small, and they can take ideas away and be inspired and lead them to hopefully transform their gardens and maybe open theirs in future.
What I love about that is the combination of real intimacy, this sense of your own world behind a locked door. And then you couple that with a generosity of sharing it with other people and the sense of community that that engenders. And from those two things comes real magic. Come on, Ed. I think we can definitely say we're in spring now, so it's a good time to take stock of your houseplants as well as the rest of the garden. I tend to use this greenhouse to store houseplants that need light, like the cacti and the aeoniums and the echeveras. And one of the ones that come halfway between that are the streptocarpus. They have these wonderful flowers, rich purples and blues and touches of white. At this time of year, whatever your houseplants are, it is worth getting them out, having a look, cutting off any dead or mouldy or spotted leaves, checking the compost. I mean, if that means taking the plant out, don't worry about that. It shouldn't be wet. If we take that out, this is a plant that is pretty ancient. So if I divide this up, I can make a new plant just by splitting it with my fingers, and that I could divide again if I wanted to, and now I've got these plants. Now I can cut back the larger foliage, so I'll cut that back, tidy that up. Right, that's one. And then this one, which is looking a bit manky, cut that off. I've mixed up a mixture which is leaf mould, perlite, and coir. So not very rich, but nice, loose, free draining. And I can pop this in like that. Now this is in a small pot, but it is important with streptocarpus, if you want them to flower well, not to put them in too big a pot. And I think that was one of the problems of this. Whereas if I take this section, which is quite substantial, and put it back into this pot in the middle, which is what you might normally do with many plants to give a chance for the roots to grow out, all that will happen is I will get a lot more foliage and not very many flowers. Whereas if I put into a pot this size, that's much more the relationship of pot size to soil. And you can see the white bits are perlite, and grit would do the job as well. It is important to have a free draining compost. Like so many of our houseplants, the quickest way to kill them, or certainly make them feel unhappy, is to overwater them, particularly to have them sitting in damp compost. There are very few that like that. Far better to water more often and also keep the air humid. And we might top dress that with a bit of grit, but that's much more likely to flower. And once you start to see new growth, feed it once a week with a high potash feed. And if you're not sure, just look for either a tomato feed or a seaweed-based feed. A liquid seaweed is ideal. Do that once a week mix, not too much. That will be enough water, it'll be enough feed, and if it's very dry, mist the air every day. And they should flower. And as I said, I've had these for years and years. I always admired the vegetables that Rekha was growing in her North London allotment, because not only were they fascinating and very diverse, but they looked really delicious. So it is extremely interesting to see how she's adapting to her new situation now that she's moved from London to the Peak District.
Since moving to the beautiful rolling hills of the Peak District, I have been grappling with the challenges of my new garden. At 650 feet above sea level and on a north-facing hillside, it is a very different undertaking to my old, sunny London allotment. Don't get me wrong, I do love my garden and all the quirkiness it has to give me. But I want to maximise its potential and find out a little bit more about this area and how to grow at such high altitude. And I've come to meet a fellow gardener who has been doing just that in this beautiful part of the country. Like me, Melanie Moore is passionate about growing her own food, and I'm hoping she will share some of her experience with me on how to be as productive as possible in what can be harsh elements in the Peak District. Hello, Melanie.
Hi, Rekha.
Love your garden.
Oh.
It's beautiful, and it's such a beautiful day as well. I've got something for you. These are my pea beans.
Oh, wow,
And
thank you.
I think they'll do very well here because those are safe from this climate.
Oh, thank you so much.
Let them dry off on the plants, and then you can save them for winter stews.
Fantastic. That's really exciting.
There
Thank
you go.
Right, off we go. Ebby.
What is this, your kale?
It is the bountiest part of our kitchen garden. Russian kale is my absolute favourite. Curly kale, red kale, Cabello Nero.
Do all brassicas do well here?
Yeah, they all work superbly.
So at this altitude, with our rainfall...
Yeah, very long season, tastes brilliant. It's
but
great.
I've noticed something.
Yes.
What
Yes.
is this?
So these are somewhat unconventional.
Yeah.
So these
that
are
looks like a jam
Yes,
to me,
but-
and that looks like some kind of butter.
Yeah, well, it was a curd. It was,
Curd.
yes. So we are in a never-ending war with slugs and snails, and I think the whole of Britain has that in
Oh,
common.
yes.
Over the years, we have been able to produce so many jams, cordials, vinegars, and we can't often get through them all. So if the cordial gets to a point where we haven't consumed it quick enough, after about a year, it is going to ferment.
Okay.
And it becomes its own alcoholic substance.
Right, so basically you're giving the slugs a little bar, is that right?
I am
Yeah?
indeed. I'm giving them a little hit of sugar
Yeah.
and then a little bit of alcohol.
Yeah.
They're not then chomping on my
No.
greenery. That's for us, and a peaceful passing is for them.
That's a great little tip. I think I might nip that.
Yeah, give it a
and
go.
Give it a go. I love the way that you have a potager kind of a garden. So you've got your flowers, but you also have your vegetables within. But you are only growing what you can eat, is that right?
Yes, for sure. We've overdone it in the past.
Yeah.
And we're a family of 4, and I'm trying to get the garden to work for me, not for me to have to work for the garden all the time.
It's a nice thing, I think, that you can grow just a small amount but feed everybody with that small amount.
And it is incredible how much comes off the earth from very small spaces. I will tend to go for the bigger leaves, and obviously it steams down really well, as we all know. But yeah, it's not long before you've got a real big saucepan full.
You have some beautiful calendula here.
Yeah, just brings us so much joy, all that colour.
You've got the joy, but you also have them as a pest deterrent because you have no black fly on these beans.
I know.
Absolutely none.
This is also part and parcel of the whole picture, is that we can go ahead and eat these too. So let's do a variety, actually, of orange and yellows.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Is that enough?
Perfect.
Lovely.
Let's go.
Asparagus?
Yes.
We're in summer.
Yes.
It's a spring crop.
No.
No? No?
Not here. So it always comes out at this time of year up here. So it is a summer salad kind of vegetable for us.
So I need to learn to be patient with my crops.
Yes. I think that's probably fair comment.
Yeah? Oh, okay. I love the range of plants in Melanie's veg garden and the unusual ones like the variegated horseradish. But there is one group of plants that has really caught my attention. You have so much soft fruit in your garden. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's no problem growing at this altitude and in our climate. The black currants, the gooseberries, raspberries.
So really, that's the secret to this place, that soft fruit does very well. And I might need to consider that.
I think you should.
My eyes are going on to that soft fruit over there. What have we got here?
So this, to me, is the gem of the soft fruit world. So this is a Japanese wineberry.
Right.
Normally it's about 4 weeks, at least, of continual harvest. It's such a sweet, delightful fruit. It contains itself very, very well. So if you keep it fresh, it holds itself. It doesn't juice easily. It's brilliant put in a cake, but you also can freeze it and it stays very, very whole. But it's just an absolute dream. We hardly touch it, and it's the gift that keeps on giving.
It gives a really beautiful plant.
Would you like a cutting that you can take away?
Oh, I'd love one, but I'd like to try one if I can.
Go ahead. Now
Can
then,
I?
yes, anything that's red.
Oh, it actually comes away like a raspberry.
Yeah.
Lovely. That tastes really good.
Talking about which, shall we go and enjoy some of the fruits of our labour?
Oh, yes, please. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Smells good.
Oh, yeah.
Lovely taste of summer.
Oh, you can actually taste the blackcurrant. That's delicious.
It's good because it's a kind of a sweet dressing, isn't it? But all these different flavours, it works really well together.
The borage, I can taste the mint.
Yeah.
And the borage, that's lovely. But you know what, Melanie? I've really enjoyed myself here today.
Good.
It's been inspiring. Seasons are different in different places, and I have to get used to that. Right, let's tuck in.
Let's give this another go.
I certainly don't share the same elevation as Rekha, but probably the same sort of climate. It's very wet here, and it can take a long time to warm up in spring, but by and large, soft fruit does very well for us. The only thing that's suffered in recent years because of our wet winters are the summer fruiting raspberries that hate sitting in wet ground. So they're not so good, but the autumn ones seem to be fine. Black currants have done very well, gooseberries, and the red currants, which I love, and we've had for years and moved around in different parts of the garden. We haven't had any for the last couple of years. The plants just got very old. They're about 30 years old. So I've got some new ones and I'll plant them up in this space. But the beauty of red currants, and that applies to white currants and gooseberries, those three, they will grow in a wide range of soils and also from full sun to almost full shade. So there's really no garden that can't grow those plants. This is a variety called Ravada. Nice young plant, and I've chosen it because it's very prolific. Lots and lots of lovely red fruits that hang in what are called strigs, produced quite late, July, Augustish. So we'll pop that in like that. Once you've planted, it is worth taking trouble to prune it to establish a good shape. What you're trying to establish was a framework of minimum of 3, and it could be up to about half a dozen branches, like a goblet. And you prune it every year to open up the middle. That lets light and air in, light so they can ripen, and also openness, because the biggest enemy of redcurrants and gooseberries are sawfly. And sawfly lay their eggs always down in the middle of the plant. They hatch out, and the tiny little caterpillars eat it from the inside out. So if you get lots of air in there, they won't lay their eggs. I've got a couple more to plant, but they are self-pollinating, so you don't need more than one in order to produce fruit, and they're very happy in a pot. They're very happy in a border. The truth is, they're very happy, easy plants to grow. Now, most of us have a garden where we try and have a range of plants. But from time to time, you come across gardeners who channel all their experience and their energy and their expertise into a passion for just one type of plant. And Colin Parton from Leeds certainly fits that bill.
I was at a local flower show and there was a stand of delphiniums. They were absolutely fantastic and caught my eye. One in particular, conspicuous. And that's what started it all. And it's just evolved from there. I had one of those light bulb moments. I woke up one morning and one thought stuck in my mind. A garden with lots of delphiniums. I think of about 106 different cultivars, growing about roughly 1,000 plants, and that's probably producing 4,000 to 5,000 flower spikes. Raymond Lister is a slightly later flowering one, but forms a beautiful spike. And then we're on to Blue Dawn, which is another one I like. It's a later flowering one, and it just has this tinge of pink running through it. I've been growing them for over 50 years and I still don't know why I like growing them. As you can see, this is a long tapering spike, typical delphinium. I like the ones with the big florets. Some of them delphiniums are doubles, and these growths here, these are the laterals that flower once the main spike is running up to seed. I'm going to look a right plonker, grow delphiniums and don't really know why I like growing them, but I just do. A lot of these Delphinium elatum cultivars are on the endangered list, which means they're sort of really not readily available to the general public. So unless people grow and propagate the older cultivars, they'll be lost forever. It's now been recognised as a national collection just recently, and so my job now is to keep these oldies going. I think Walton Gemstone's on the list, Darling Sue, Pandora is another one. Oh, and Clifford Pink. I like Clifford Pink because it reminds me of my dad. My dad was called Clifford, so it's one I like is Clifford Pink, yeah. And be pottering about, busy doing nothing all day long. Sounds like Wombles, doesn't it? Yeah. I like Gillian-Dallas, you know, these big sort of florets and nice shaped spikes. That's a favourite of mine. I like them all, to be honest. There ain't any I dislike, so any delphinium is welcome in this garden, whether it's tall, short, fat or thin. They're all welcome here. The only way to cultivate any delphinium to keep it true to type is to take basal cuttings which appear in the spring, usually March to April, and you have to carefully scrape down to the crown of the plant and carefully remove with a sharp knife the cutting, even with a tiny slither of the crown attached to it. The next stage is to insert these into my expensive propagation apparatus, which consists of 2 plastic cups. I tend to put about 1 inch of sharp grit sand in the bottom of the cups, and then about 1 inch of tap water to about there. I place my cutting directly into there, and in 3 to 4 weeks you will see tiny roots appearing on the bottom of this cutting, and then you're ready for the next stage, which is potting into these small pots. Once you see lots of basal growth appearing, the next stage is to remove the old cutting material. And I use a pair of scissors and just snip through the old cutting, pull the cane, and that is your new plant. Unlike, say, chrysanthemums or dahlias, you know, the cutting actually makes your plant. With a delphinium, it's the new growth that comes from the old cutting. And there you have your new delphinium. Why I like delphiniums? I've no idea. I'm going to have that on my tombstone. Why does he like delphiniums? Or why did he like delphiniums? Another one like purple velvet, and it has that nice texture to the floret, which most of them don't have. Some of the old cultivars are susceptible to mildew, and especially the purples, they seem to suffer it more than the blues. If you gave them more space between each plant, that's going to help airflow, and that would help with mildew. This is Blue Nile, and Blue Nile usually does well for me. And as you can see, it's probably got up 6'6" this year. It's a bit unusual, this olive poppleton, in that it's got like a honey-coloured eye. If anybody out there's got Lady Eleanor Porthos, Margaret Farrand, or Duchess of Portland, please get in touch.
Make more day, wouldn't it?
It would. I might then realise why I like growing delphiniums. Once the new growth comes on your delphiniums and they get to about 10 inches a foot high, this is the time to thin them. So you're thinning down to 4 or 5 shoots per plant, and as soon as they're thinned, I like to insert 3 canes, forming a triangle round each plant. But as soon as I've inserted the canes, I try and get the first tie on, as it's crucial, because if you miss tying them, you know, they're prone to blowing over and snapping. Now, some people, they'll finish tying at the base of the flower. They don't like to see the string and that. But I find this is a point where most delphs break. So I like to tie even higher up into the bloom. I'd be lost without my delphiniums. It's just a way of life. I've grown them for that many years, and I'm still getting that much enjoyment out of them. I'll grow them until I pop my clogs. They're head and shoulders, literally, above everything else.
Well, I love a delphinium, but I don't quite love them that much. I think that's absolutely fantastic. And Colin, you say you don't know what it is about delphiniums or why you like them. By the time you get to your level of delphinium obsession, it sort of doesn't matter. It's just fabulous that you and they exist in the same place at the same time. Now, going from the extreme beauty and passion for delphiniums to a much more humdrum task. This is a hydrangea. Last week, I pruned the paniculata hydrangeas, and those flower on new growth. And if you prune those hard, the new growth will carry the flowers. This is a lace cap, mop head hydrangea, and these produce their flowers on old growth. So if you prune this really hard, you'll get plenty of growth, but it won't carry any flowers. So the best thing to do is leave the flower heads on over winter, wait till the worst of the frost is over, because they do form a little bit of protection, and then just trim them back to a nice healthy pair of buds at the end of each shoot, and no bare wood after that at all. And if you've got any really old branches, you can go right down in and cut the bottom, but don't cut back more than a third of the plant at any one time. So if you want to completely renew it, do it over 3 years. But in this case, I'm happy to have quite a bushy, big plant. Right, this is a job for me. Here are some jobs for you. If you have sweet pea seedlings, it's a little early to plant them out in most areas, but it's worth checking through them and reducing any straggly specimens by about half. And this will encourage bushy side shoots, which in turn will hold more flowers. So just cut them back, just above a side shoot, and then leave them to grow for another few weeks before planting them out. Now is a good time to sow a first batch of carrots. Make sure that the ground is free of stones, and also use a plot that hasn't been recently manured. Rake it to a fine tilth and sow the carrots in rows so you know where they are, putting the seed in as thinly as you can. Then cover the rows over and wait for them to germinate, which should take about 10 days to 2 weeks. And carrots are best sown successionally, so some now, some in May, and even some as late as June for an autumn harvest. If you have any hardy ferns, now is the time to cut them back. If you've got tender ferns like tree ferns, leave those for at least another month, as we could easily get more frosts. Take the fronds right back down to the ground, and this will expose the knuckle of new growth that is very soon going to unfurl into really fresh green growth. And the old spent material can be gathered up and taken to the compost heap. At this time of year and at this time of day, I often come out here because the light is so lovely. And if you're going to sit in the garden in the evening, and particularly as these evenings are getting longer, make sure that you allow the light in. And if you're going to sit in the garden in the middle of the day in the summer, you're going to need shade. And although you can't control your neighbours' buildings or trees, you can control your garden to manage and manipulate and channel the light. Well, that's it for today. Next week, you'll be with Adam, and he will be in his garden at 8 o'clock next Friday. And I will be back here at Longmeadow in a couple of weeks' time, which of course is Easter. It's a big weekend for the garden then. And I'll tell you a little bit about the dog garden that I'm doing for Chelsea, with Ned's help. Till then, bye-bye. Go on in. Good boy.